Hello, everyone, and welcome. As you're coming in today, we just want to let you know that we are so thrilled that you are choosing to invest some of your valuable time in learning with us. I'm Becky Robinson, and I'm thrilled and honored today to be joined by Catherine Heath and Brenda Wensil. And we are anticipating the upcoming release of their latest book, I Wish I'd Known This, 6 Career Accelerating Secrets for Women Leaders. It is going to be published on August 16th.
Yes.
And we just can't wait for that. Yes, thank you, Catherine. I got the date right this time. So we're so thrilled that you've come in. And as you're coming into the room today, we hope that you'll take a moment in the chat to let us know where you're calling in from. And if you happen to be representing your organization and this is part of your professional development, I would really appreciate you letting us know what your organization is so we can give you a shout out. So as we move forward today, I want to let you know about a few technical considerations for today's event. One is that we are recording this event and we will make the recording available to you later in the event that you want to share it with a friend, colleague, family member, anyone who could benefit from this content. So we'll be thrilled to provide that recording. It will come to you in a follow-up email. The other thing I want to let you know is that we will be taking questions later on in the event, and we would encourage you to put those questions into the chat, and we will be gathering them and sharing them with our authors later on in today's event. So at any point, please feel free. I'm thinking that we might be having a problem with our chat today. We have a couple of people with raised hands, and Wendy was having trouble with the chat earlier as well. If you are having trouble with the chat, go ahead and let me know that using the hand raise function. We'll try to do some troubleshooting because it is important to us that we'll be able to engage with you throughout today's broadcast. So again, thank you so much for joining us. It looks like Zoom might have an issue with chat today. Wendy, who's our co-host, will be looking into how we might be able to help you with that. In the meantime, just be sure that to know that we're so thrilled that you're here and looking forward hopefully to being able to engage with you later on in today's event. So before we go any further, I want to take a moment to introduce our authors to you. They represent a breadth of experience, both in corporate environments, and Brenda has some experience in the government sectors, and they have so much deep expertise that I'm so thrilled for them to be able to share with you today. So let me start by introducing my friend, Brenda Wensil. I've enjoyed getting to know you, Brenda. She is a recognized expert on women's leadership and dedicated to advancing women in the workforce. She is a managing director and heads the Leadership Acceleration Program at Bravanti. And she's authored numerous articles on women's leadership and inclusive leadership behaviors and is a frequent keynote speaker and panelist. So welcome to you, Brenda.
Thank you, Becky.
I'm also thrilled to introduce Dr. Catherine Heath, although this is not our first time presenting a webinar together. I've previously supported Catherine with the launch of other books, including the most recent, and for some reason that
The Influence Effect.
Thank you, The Influence Effect. Thank you. It's right on the tip of my tongue. So Dr. Catherine Heath is a distinguished thought leader, author, sought after speaker, and she also is an expert on this topic of women's leadership. So for more than 20 years, she has coached high potential leaders to help them move forward faster. She is the co-author on 3 books and authored 5 chapters in the HBR Guide for Women at Work. She currently serves as managing director of the Leadership Acceleration Practice at Bravanti. So just a quick word about Bravanti. Bravanti is a leading provider of executive coaching and leadership development services with 1,000 consultants in 30 countries around the world. So they offer such a breadth of services. So thank you again for being here with me today. We do have a few polls to engage you. I'm hoping that our polls will work since our chat is not working yet today. But so let's try this out. The first poll, we'd love to get to know you more as we dive into today's topic. So which of these best describes your role in your organization? Are you in the C-suite? Are you a senior leader? Are you a mid-level manager? Are you an individual contributor? Or are you an owner or entrepreneur? Or if none of those fit you, please feel free to choose other. And it looks like our poll functionality is working well. So I'm thrilled to see that. And we're really grateful for your feedback on this question. I'll give you a few more seconds on this first question, and then we'll take a look at the results together. So let's take a look. So it looks like we have about 10% of our attendees today represent the C-suite, about 17% more who are senior leaders. We have 26% mid-level managers, 24% individual contributors, and about 14% owner entrepreneurs. So if your chat is working, feel free to tell us in the chat what that other is, because we have some others as well. Let's take a look at poll number 2. What do you hope to achieve today? Are you hoping to learn a new strategy, discover career building advice, help women advance in your organization, general interest in the topic, or you're very excited to hear from these 2 authors? So we'll give you a moment to answer that as well. Let's take a quick look. Lots of participation again. It's interesting to me, Catherine and Brenda, that we did have pretty much every level in the organization represented by our attendees today.
I'm really happy to see that. That's great.
All right, so let's take a look here. It looks like 40% of our attendees are looking to discover career building advice today, and you are in the right place, because we will be doing that, and lots of interest in the other topics as well.
Awesome.
So let's take that.
We can. Let's take a look at this third poll. We're curious about what type of organization you represent. We mentioned earlier that both Catherine and Brenda have a lot of deep experience in corporate environments. So we'd like to know, do you represent a for-profit organization, a nonprofit, an educational institution? Are you from a government agency or other? So glad to see these polls working for us today. All right, I'm going to wrap this up in just a moment. Thank you to all who are answering. We've got a really engaged bunch today. And it looks like about 63% of our folks come from for-profit environments today, about 10% nonprofits, about 11% government, and 14% other. So I think that should be useful information to you as we proceed. And I look forward to learning from you and your presentation.
Thank you so much. I'm Brenda Wensil. I'll take it and get us started here. And thank you for filling out the poll, because it does help, because we cannot see you, to know who you are and where you are and what you want to hear about. There's so much that we could share here. We'll try to tailor it to what you all just share in the poll. We really do wish we could see you. We wish we were in the room with you, and COVID notwithstanding, Catherine, maybe one of these days we can do a big ballroom full of great women and men who are leading other women. You know, we wanted to share with you some of the highlights of the book today, and then saved room for lots of questions and back and forth, and maybe hitting on some of the things that you would hope to to get through this conversation. The title of this book, I'm going to share the title here. It kind of comes to us from many of the responses we get from the women that we have coached. And let me just make a quick note here, is that, Catherine and I have pulled these themes together from our specific coaching with women. This is what the work that we've chosen to do. I joined her in this work a number of years ago, and we haven't looked back. And we wrote this because we have learned so much, and we, as coaches and as women who are working with organizational cultures as well, and we really believe strongly that we should share this, in the hopes that it could help other women get a boost. And it could be an accelerated boost, or it could be, how do we get unstuck? So these 6 themes and patterns that we hear, and some strategies around those, we believe there's something for everyone in here. Now, our organization, I think, Catherine, if I'm not mistaken, I believe we have coached upwards of 25 to 30,000 women as an organization. And so there are a lot of lessons to draw on and to learn. And our very specific work with probably close to 800 women drives a lot of what we have learned and what we want to share with you in this book. So we've captured this for you. We've captured this in an effort to give you something that we have seen happening, so that you can see it coming, or you can identify it while it's happening, and then in many ways find strategies that pull you or women you're coaching, women and others that you're coaching or mentoring and sponsoring, through a difficult period, so that we can accelerate faster. So that is what we hope to share with you today. We believe this can be very impactful for men as well. And we want to mention that because we do coach many men in our work. And prior to the pandemic, we shared some of these themes with audiences of both men and women in the working environment, and they did resonate across the board. But we're careful to make sure we clarify that we have spent a disproportionate amount of our time with women, and women in corporate or executive roles, really across all geographies and sizes of companies, up and down the organizational structure. And so most of these patterns are derived from the work with women, but we do think they're applicable to men as well, and especially men who are coaching and leading other women as well. So Catherine, we stumbled on this in a quirky kind of way. We were not looking to doing this, but share that.
Let me tell you why we wrote this book, and then we'll launch in and tell you parts of the book. We want to go over the purpose first, and I have to tell you a story because that's where it started. This was pre-pandemic, and it was a Friday afternoon, and I was thinking back over my week and reflecting, which is something I recommend people do. So I was practicing what I preach, and I was writing down what I had coached women on. And it was the same thing. It felt like Groundhog Day. It felt like I was the Bill Murray movie where he stays in a loop and he can't get out of it. And finally, at the end of the movie, some things change and he breaks the loop. And that's what Brenda and I wanted. We wanted to break the loop. So I wrote down these patterns, and then I had a conversation with Brenda, and I said, you know, here are the things I keep coaching people on over and over again, and we need to put them in the light of day so that we can help women, because Brenda and I both believe that the world would be a better place if there were more women leaders. And right now, only 6% of corporate CEOs and Fortune 500 companies are women. And we want more women in the top and at each level. So we put them down, and that's what this book is about. And we called it, We Should Have Known This. The book is also, we wanted it to be a coaching session. That's what we do. That's what we love. And that's what we thrive on. I have to pinch myself that I get to do this work. And the coaching, if you've never had it, one of the things coaches do is they ask hard questions and make you reflect and help you look at, you know, what's going on with you. And you have a story in your head. And we ask you as coaches sometimes to examine those stories. Is that story working for you, or is it working against you? And an example of that is in my corporate career in banking, I had a story in my head that I needed to be strong. I couldn't be vulnerable. If I showed weakness, I wouldn't get promoted, that I needed to gut it out and do it by myself. And I realized that story didn't work for me. And I had to change my story and realize that I had to ask for help and get other people to help me as I navigated my career in corporate America. And it worked, but I had to rearrange that thinking. So today, as we're going through this, I want you to think about the stories that you tell yourself. Do they work for you? Did they get in your way? And that's what the book is packed with. So Brenda, tell us quickly about those blind spots and what they were and what those patterns were.
Here are the patterns. Let me share my screen with you so that I can, and these really represent each chapter of the book. So let me get to the page, and I'll share all 6 of them with you. Each of these are the themes that we have captured. And again, let me just say that not all of these themes hit us all at the same time. They don't all hit us at the same stage of a career, but any one of them can sort of dull our impact or slow us down, or if we don't pay attention to them, it could take us longer to get where we're trying to go than otherwise. And so we really don't want to put these forward to say, hey, listen, here's 6 ways you can be broken. You need to be fixed. It is really not that at all. It's really these 6 patterns that in our work, what we have noticed is that if you pay attention to them and are proactive and intentional about it, then you can really have impact sooner, longer, deeper, faster, and all of that. It's like a quarter turn of the screw where you can just tighten up and get good lift from that. Return on time invested is really what that part is about. So this chapter here is about setting a direction. It's about that this pattern that we've noticed, that women don't always, or we can fall into these moments in our work where we really don't create or state a long-term vision, a long-term plan for ourselves. And a lot of times in this work we do, in this pattern, we notice is that women don't always do that, because why bother? It's going to change anyway. And Catherine and I always say, that's true, it will change. And won't that be cool when it changes? Because now those opportunities start to be a little more in line with the directionally correct things that you're looking for. So this chapter goes through how that happens and the things that hold us back. And the things we can do, the strategies, the questions we can ask, the strategies and actions we can take to create an intentional plan and gain traction from it, instead of sort of drifting along. And I think a lot of us have been subject to sort of leaning on the org chart of the day to point us in a certain direction. And this chapter is all about, we don't have to do it just that way. There are other ways to be intentional about it. The second one is about self-awareness. We love this one. We actually call it, I think, lack of self-awareness, because what we know from research is that only about 15% of us actually are self-aware. But we all walk around most of the time thinking that we are self-aware. And so we also know that highly impactful people work on this. They know very clearly who they are. They know exactly the kind of impact they want to have on the world around them, and they know exactly what the outcomes are that they are looking for. And so this chapter dives into that, this pattern that we see where women, the higher and further we go, the harder this gets in terms of time and practice of doing it. But we know that from the leaders that we coach, that when we know how we land and the strategies it takes to understand our impact around us, that we get greater lift. We get greater lift and we have better and bigger impact in the world. This third one is—
Brenda, when you mentioned earlier that between us, we felt like we coached 800 women, as part of that, we do 360 interviews.
Yeah.
And we call somebody and say, tell us about Joe, or tell us about Lynn, or tell us about Mary. And what they do is they give you a lot of information. And in those 4,000 interviews, I couldn't believe we did that many. Most of the time they say, this is a pattern. She doesn't know how she lands on people, or she needs to be more confident, or she needs to do X. And it's a thing about self-awareness. She is not aware of how she impacts other people. And so we want to correct that, or bring it into light of day, as I said earlier, so that you have all the power you need and you're aware of how you, as Brenda said, you land on people.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Catherine, because it is exponentially more data that we have that supports these patterns from all these interviews that we do with women in the leadership they work around. And we hear it in this next one too, Catherine, don't we? This whole thing about, the clinical term of this is the brand, our personal brand. And this is all about getting known for something. I'm going to dive into this phrase that we've started using around reputationality in a few minutes. But the blind spot here is about not realizing how powerful it can be. I was coaching a man, an executive leader, earlier this week, and I asked him, I said, what would you attribute one thing to your rapid success to where you are? And he said, I'm able to promote myself. I have to tell people what I do and what I'm good at and why I bring value. And that the pattern here for women is, that's just not our first go-to. That's not exactly the way. We don't use this and leverage this in a way that serves us well. The next one, getting a GPS for good guidance. This is all about, knowing where you're going and knowing where you are along the way. And the pattern is around, sometimes we women in our careers can try to navigate without having that good data, that good information about where we are on that journey. And so this one is a lot about the strategies around how to cultivate feedback from all the right places, not so that we can conform, but so that we can take what works for us and take what makes us more powerful and more impactful and leverage it on purpose to get the work done. So Kathryn, anything on that one? I think you
Well,
might.
I mean, I saw where some of the women I've coached are on this call, and they know that the last call we do together, although we're coaches for life, is who's going to give you feedback. It is so important that you not drive blind. And we see so many people do that. And we want you to get that information. So this is a packed chapter that talks about how can you do that, because it's difficult to do.
Absolutely. Number 5 is a big one as well. The habit, the practice and discipline of preparation, relentless preparation and practice. And sometimes we think of this only as getting ready for a presentation, standing in front of that iPhone or the mirror and practicing and rehearsing. And yes, there's that. But we go a little bit deeper into this chapter, because the pattern that we notice here is that often especially the further we go, we don't spend as much time on this in the strategic ways that could help us here. And we talk about strategies to help us do more than just be good on our feet, do more than just wing it, do more than lean on the things that have always worked for us. This is about preparing a point of view, being strategic about how we talk informally about our work. And the thing Kathryn and I kept saying throughout this chapter is, getting the work done is only part of getting the job done. And so we want to really open the aperture on how important this one is. And then the final one, Kathryn's going to go into some detail, and this is just don't go it alone. Kathryn, what do you say? The worst.
Well, I'm going to talk about craft for just a second, and then I'm going to talk about don't go it alone. Craft is really important. And the reason we knew that week, I sat down and reflected several of the phone calls that week, and every week that I coach women, they call upset, something didn't go well. And I'll say, how did you get ready?
Yeah.
And if they had practiced or prepared or counted the votes before they went or got people to support their ideas, things would have gone better. And so it's just something that we have to do. Most people think I just have to do the work. No, you have to prepare and practice. But let's talk about who goes along with you on your career journey. Everybody grab a piece of paper. Brenda, if you go to the next slide. We said earlier that we wanted you to think about this as a coaching session. So here's some coaching questions. So write down the answers. How many people support you in your career, and who are they? Just write some names down, just top of mind. I'll give you a minute to do that. Who supports you in your career? All right. The second question is, do people know your career goals? If they support you, do they know where you're going? And if you don't know exactly where you're going, just like I'm going north or I'm going east, I'm going in a direction. You're not just sitting there waiting for things to happen, and refining that and acting like your career is a business. Every one of most of you work for profit making, even nonprofit government, you have a plan. A career is a business. All right, just check. Do they know your goals? All right, here's what we found in this pattern. If you'll go to the next slide, Brenda, is that people you can't go it alone. The biggest career mistake you'll ever make is the one you make alone. And even a couple of weeks ago, I was on vacation last week, but the week before I was coaching and I was doing one of those interviews. And this guy said to me, I'd be glad to help her, but I don't know what she wants. I don't know what her career goals are. I can't tell you how many times I have heard that. My father used to say, if I had a nickel for every time I heard that, he would have another phrase that he was talking about. And I feel the same way. If I had a nickel for how many times I had heard, I would help her, but I don't know what she wants. I want you to know your goals and to work. These are in the chapter. It talks about all these different groups. I'm not going to talk about all of them right now. But you all need agents, like at 3 o'clock, agents and amplifier. Agents are like sports agents. They talk you up. They say, she's really good at X, Y, and Z, or she can run a really tough project, or she can deal with multiple stakeholders, or she's a quick learner. They're talking you up to other people. And you need people who are what I call amplifiers in a meeting. They say, oh yeah, I agree with Catherine. You've got to recruit people. You might have asked them before. You've got to have mentors and sponsors. And there's been so much written about sponsorship, and the actual research is only 1 in 5 women have a sponsor. So develop mentors, develop a board of directors. A board of directors is not a group that meets. They are people who are part of your inner circle, and they know your career goals. They help you. They're looking out for you. They listen out for things. They know who you are and who you aren't. They know your stories, and they work with you. And you need a gang. We talk about that. Brenda talks about you have to have somebody in your career where you can make a 911 career call to. Oh, I just got offered this job, or I got turned down for this job, or what do I do? It's the quick text. I need to go have a glass of wine, or come meet me for coffee. You've got to have all these people. Great. Your career trajectory won't be good if you don't have the support. Don't be like me, who tried to do your career alone and had to learn the hard way. Brenda, would you add anything to this?
I just, my posse, my gang has been just amazing through the years. They're the people that are close to you, that remind you of why you signed up for something. They were the people that you went to first and enrolled them in this, and they keep you in the game. They give you strength and energy when you're exhausted and fatigued and kind of forget about the higher calling of why you're doing what you're doing. So yeah, I love this one. I love this one. And I'm like you, Catherine, I'm so surprised that we work with so many women who still try to do it themselves.
All right, go to the next slide, Brenda, if you would. All right, so here's the action part. You got to do something besides just listen to us. Who do you need to enroll? And I love the word enroll, because you just think about it. You're getting them on board with you. And what do you need to tell them? And it might be a refinement. You told them last time that you were on career 4.0, and now you got to tell them that you're on career 4.3. You've changed it. So take a minute, write down an action step for yourself. Who do you need to enroll? If that list you wrote down earlier was not long enough, and what do you need to tell them? All right, Brenda, tell us about.
All right. Give them a minute to shake off the don't go it alone here. Let me walk you into this, the little highlights in this chapter that we've called reputationality. I want to get into that, but let me ask you the question. So that same sheet of paper, or whatever you're capturing notes on, I want you to write down 3 words that you believe you are known for right now in the work you do. These are the 3 words someone would say when you're not in the room and your name comes up. I see that we're getting some raised hands, and we're going to hold to those. Becky, help me make sure we get to the raised hands, because I know we may have some good questions later, and we're going to get to that.
Yes, we actually have our chat functioning again.
Good.
So
Yay.
Yay. We're going to get to that right shortly here. Now, write down the 3 words that you really want to be known for. What are the ones that you prefer would come up when you're not in the room? Just write those 3 words down. They can be anything. Hey, you got your 3 words? Well, what we know about this idea of branding is powerful. We know it's really, really important. To Catherine's point, she just talked about some of the feedback we hear about people being willing to help. They just don't know what it is that you're trying to accomplish. It's a very similar thing we hear on brand. Often we get known for something that serves us well for a really long time, and then we want to do something different, and that reputation needs to come with us, and or change or evolve. And so it's important to keep a handle on what we're known for and what people call you for. You know, what do people get when they get you? And here's the pattern that strikes us, and why this chapter is different from most personal branding kinds of things. And it's that while many of the women we coach intellectually get it, they understand brand, and they understand what they need to be doing, there is a natural hesitancy in many cases where it feels inauthentic. It feels canned. It feels like, you know, I'm going to have to put together, you know, something about me in this corporate environment or this government environment or this other environment that helps me conform and put me in a box there. We think that is not great. We would encourage not doing that. What we like to focus on here in our coaching is putting together your reputation, the things you have credentials and credibility with. It could be a special expertise. It could be a niche, that you're working in, but to pull that together with who you are, your DNA, your personality, your core, your values, push those things together. And we believe in the work we've done. When that comes together, it's really extraordinary. It's powerful. The women come to a place where they're much more confident about talking about what they care about, what they've done, what they want to do. And honestly, it gets the women we work with to a strategic place where they can confidently say no to certain things that really don't serve them quite as well. So this reputationality is sort of a push together word that Catherine and I finally came to. It's like, it's more for women. It's more than this. It's more than just having, a brand of credentials in a can that you can talk about. It's really about how you do what you do and what is differentiating about you. And this happens a lot. Catherine and I was coaching a woman recently, and she said, I have so much going on. I know this is important. I really know I should do it, but I just, I can't get to it right now. And by the way, I've been working here for 15 years at a senior level. Everyone should know what I do. And if they don't, that's on them kind of feeling. We did get through the work. And on the back end of it, she said that she's really clear about where she's going, what she wants to share about what she does and how she does it. And this confidence was building in her in a way that gave her this ability to talk about it. The other thing she said is, it's just not me. I don't go talk about what I do. It's not who I am. We hear that all the time. And so this chapter helps get at this idea of how to pull the genuine you together, all that you've accomplished, all that you are, put it together with ways that help you authentically talk about it. So with that,
let me just add one thing. I think
Yep.
the reputationality is really important because in our patterns that you and I talked about, Brenda, and are
Yeah.
part of this book, one of them is that people are unaware of what people say about them when they're not in the room. And you've got to figure that out. And you can reinvent yourself. Brenda said this, you can change your brand, you can change your reputationality. And it is more authentic to think about it's part reputation and it's part personality. It seems much more authentic to me. So I love this term, even though I was part of inventing it. I like it. And I think it's an important concept for everybody to get and be in charge of.
So that's just a quick snapshot of two of the chapters. Here's the way the book flows. And we thought, sharing this with you might help you get into it easily. We like to start by sharing a real story of something that has happened. We obviously don't use real names, but the stories are impactful and they're classic stories that we run into. We reveal the blind spot. What is it? Is it any one of those 6 patterns we just talked about? And we talk about the perils of that blind spot. If unattended, if left on its own, what would happen? What are the possible downsides of that? And then we go into key questions to ask, trying to help you know where you are in that pattern, if it's an issue or not, strategies to turn that thing more into the wind of where you want it to go. And then we go into the whole thing about stories that hold us back. These beliefs that limit us are huge. And they surface all of the time, regardless of how high and far we go. We talk about how to reframe those stories in ways that serve us better. And then we end the chapters with coaching tips. So it's a natural flow. Every chapter sort of follows the same pattern of thought. Catherine, anything on that?
And the stories are, as I said earlier, are so important to know what's going on with you and changing it and being intentional. Brenda said that. Thinking about these stories. This book is a book I hope you'll read with a piece of paper or a notepad and you're taking notes. You don't have to share it with anybody, but you're thinking about you and your career.
Absolutely. So with that, I think want to leave you with this thought. It's Catherine, you love this
Yeah,
quote.
I
Catherine,
love this. Mary Oliver is a poet, and she's one of my favorite poets. And this quote is from her, and it says, "Tell me what it is you plan, what's your plan to do with your one wild and precious life." I challenge you to think about that. What is it that you want to do? You have a career, you want to be successful. What is it you plan to do? And read this book, reflect, think about those stories, be intentional, and we want to hear from you. So let's take questions.
let's go right to questions. And I'm going to pull this this slide down, Catherine, so we can at least be a little more present. There we go.
So happy to be able to talk with you about questions. And so we want to invite you to go ahead and put those questions in the chat, and I'll be happy to read them out to Catherine and Brenda. But before we do, I'll ask a question while we're waiting for folks to put their questions in. So I'm wondering, for a woman who might be feeling truly stuck in her career, which of the blind spots that you address in the book would be the best one to start with first?
Oh, Becky. I'll answer that one. Yeah, go figure out what your brand is and what you're known for. And then the second would be go talk to your posse, and you have to probably, to figure out your brand and your reputation, you've got to talk to your posse.
Speaking of that, Catherine, I just saw in the chat somebody saying, how do you build your posse if you're not working right now, you're not around that a natural group? And I would say, Catherine, you may have another answer here, but I would say, look at your former colleagues, look at your friends and the people that you do spend time with, even if it's in a remote situation, if you're not in an office. There are people in your professional past, there are people in your current friend circle, there are people in areas that maybe you haven't met yet that you want to reach out to. Catherine, others?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we hear a lot is that people say that, oh, I wish I'd kept up with so-and-so. I knew them and I didn't keep up with them. So make a process for yourself. I don't know what it is. And I'm guilty of this one. And so at times I'll think, okay, I got to go back and reach out and reconnect, because then you get embarrassed that you haven't been back to them in so long. So I would say just start with some of the people Brenda mentioned and keep it up. Keep reaching out with them and enroll them in whatever direction you're going. I think I want to go back to work, or I think I want to do part-time. Do you know of anything? Here's what I want to do. Putting it out in the universe, what you want to do.
I'm noticing another question here. It's a good one around age bracket. Did we write this for any particular age or stage of career and all that? And no, it's really, what we have noticed is that in our coaching, we're coaching women of primarily senior roles, senior ages. I can't put an age specific on that because it's across the board. And so as we're writing this, we're recognizing that much of these patterns and the strategies around them have come from our work with women who have some scar tissue like us, and they're still in that working world. But it applies to the younger professionals and women as well, because maybe they haven't reached the stage of the career to gain some of this scar tissue. But now on the front end of a career, it's a great chance to start to architect it in a different way. So I think hopefully that answers the question of someone who said, hey, they're in the mid 50s and is there a certain age group? We struggled with that because it really is a broad range.
So before we go to more questions, I want to make sure that we let folks know about a couple of really critical things. And I do see that there are lots more questions and we're going to get to them. But we have a very special offer for people who've attended today's webinar. And that is, if you pre-order the book on Amazon or your favorite retailer, we have some free codes that we'll be able to share with you when the book launches, so that in addition to getting that print book that you've pre-ordered, you can get a free ebook version or a free audiobook version, which are through Google Play Books. And so we want to make sure that you know about that. And we're going to put a link in the chat. Once you've pre-ordered the book, you can fill in your information at the link in the chat, and we'll make sure you get that audiobook or ebook, whichever one you select. We also have a volume purchase incentive that we're going to share with you about. We want to encourage you to sign up to stay in touch with Brenda and Kathryn. We'd love for you to share the book trailer with your friends and colleagues, and you also will have the opportunity to download the sample chapter. So as you're putting your questions in and as we're getting to the Q&A, we wanted to make sure that we first paused to let you know about that amazing special offer, which is only for those of you who are on today's webinar. So we can get back to those questions, Brenda. I know that they've been coming in fast and furious.
Well, there's one here that I love. It's what if you don't like what you're known for? And haven't we all been there before? How do you quickly change perceptions? This is a good one. And we do cover a lot of this in the reputationality section. Is first you have to go find out, what it is and you're known for. And then someone told me once, she said, don't fight your brand. You're known for something. And so it is easier to pivot off of that knowledge than maybe, otherwise, but you can always build an aspirational brand. And we do cover that in the chapter. And those are the kinds of coaching sessions I love to have. What else do we have, Becky?
Well, here's a question from Laura. She wonders if there are any tips you have or thoughts on the intersection of career and family planning and how having kids might intersect with creating a successful career.
We actually have a whole chapter on that, which we didn't mention because we couldn't write a book. We worked with women too long to ignore that. And there are lots of strategies in there about what you need to do and how you can negotiate for flexibility in your job, how you put out what you want. The good news these days is that there are more jobs than there are people. So I think you have a lot of negotiating power. So use that negotiating power to get what you want. And you got to go ask for it. You got to put it out there. I mean, one of the things we talk a lot about in this book is be the CEO of your career. The women that we coach are fabulous business people, and they will drive a business plan and go for it. And they don't spend as much time on your career. So do a business plan for your career and enroll the people you need to achieve that.
The other thing I would say, is just to offer, so many women of a certain age bracket that we have worked with will often say, I'm thinking about having a family or having children, but maybe I should wait. And, we kind of say, don't wait, don't postpone your life for careers. What we know about women's careers is we go in all different directions, up, down, sideways, and that's the beauty of it, really. So don't wait for that. There are plenty of things in this book around the posse, going with a group, being clear about what you want, being clear about who you are. Those are things that really help in those turbulent, family developing years. A couple of ones in here I'm picking up on, Catherine, is any tips for more powerfully and better engaging with your sponsors? This is where we own a relationship if we have a sponsor. So any thoughts on that one, Catherine?
I'll go back to, figure out what you want and go ask for it. And keep your sponsor, celebrate with your sponsor if something good happens. Let them know if something is going on, keep them up to date. They're using political capital for you, and you've got to give back to them. It's a reciprocity in relationships. It's not a one-way thing. One of the quotes in the book is that there are no job fairies. You've got to work it, and go work with your sponsor and engage and keep. And the major thing I advise is you got to celebrate when good things happen, and don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah.
So here's a question about women who feel unable to ask for help or find asking for help difficult. Is there any way that you could help them overcome their resistance to asking for help and move out of their comfort zones?
Well, that goes to the story I told earlier where I felt vulnerable. That's that story in your head. And you've got to write a new story. I had to write a new story for myself and say, somebody said to me one time, the person with the most vulnerability has the most power. I'm still thinking about that. And I think it's true, which is if you go ask, people so want to help. They really do. And so you've got to have a new story and create some story that says, yeah, they really want to help me. I got to go ask. It feels good to help somebody. You're doing them a favor.
Thank you. So here's a question. What's your experience of coaching women of color in relation to what you've written in the book? And how does your advice apply to the challenges that women of color may face in their organizations?
That's a hard one.
That is a
Brenda, you want to
hard
go, or
one.
I'll go add, or either one?
Start, I'll add.
Well, I mean, what we know is women of color face different headwinds. I always think it's hard. It's a narrow path for all of us. And for women of color, the path is even narrower. And I think that all the things we talk about in the book, you got to do and realize that path is so narrow and the headwinds are even stronger and it's more difficult.
The thing I would add there, and we have lots of women, of color that we work with that are colleagues of ours and coaches with us, and they will share that these same patterns, come up in their specific coaching conversations as well. One thing we know is really important for all of us, but I will say women of color in particular too, is finding each other, finding that group of us who are alike, and creating what I kind of call it's a small community of people like us that can get together and create that network and that same conversation. And that is so hard in organizations where, we've coached women, Catherine, who get in a room together, don't they? And they say, this is the first time I've been in a room with just women before, ever, where they had more than one other woman in the room. And I'm thinking, it's 2022, really? That's happening? But it is. And for women of color, even more so. And so to gather, create these small groups, create a special posse, is helpful because it helps you feel like you're not alone, you're not crazy, and that there are ways to amplify, and create a voice and get out there and do it. There's so much behind that work, and I wish I had a separate hour with that question and the person who asked it.
So another question is, what advice do you have for women who are older, in quotation marks, feel like that they still have a lot to offer, but may feel overlooked in an organization that's investing in younger talent?
I think that you have a whole lot of power as an older woman. I'm an older woman. You've just got to put it out there and talk about what Brenda said, your reputationality. What are you known for? What are you good at? Do you have enough of, I would challenge you, do you have a strong posse? A posse rides with you. Remember that? It's an old word and we really struggle with what's the word, but posses ride together and we want a group that rides with you. Enroll your posse in what you want to go do and don't let yourself be ignored because you have so much to offer. I do think there's wisdom in scar tissue.
There is. And the other thing I'll add to that is our observation is that senior women in organizations have so much to give, have so much power from those years. And boy, what the question here is, what do you do with that privilege? What do we do for other women? How can we pull women up? And we start to see this organic thing happening in organizations we work with, where some more senior women take on the role of mentoring, sponsoring, pulling other women along. So apart from the work, there's the work of creating a great environment for women to come join or to retain, to stay. So, there's a bigger aperture. The older we get, the higher and further we go here. It gets trickier, but we also have a bigger aperture to play with. Maybe our roles are less subject matter expertise and much more about our personal power in terms of what we do for the organization or for other women and other talent in that organization.
Thank you for that. It is encouraging to think about those of us who are farther along in our careers being able to create a path for other women to follow. So Maggie has a question. She said that you all mentioned the idea of knowing what people say about you when you're not in the room. And what is the best way to find that out?
Would that be Maggie Norris out there?
It would.
From our banking days, yes, and other. Well, there are a lot of ways you can do this, and a lot of it depends on your style, what you're comfortable with. But But as coaches, we do that for people all the time. You know, we go have the interviews, we go ask the questions, we can dig on things and get context. But if you don't happen to have a coach, then you can enlist someone to do this for you. You can also just go straight to the source and just be honest and say, I'm trying to figure out my reputation here. I'm trying to figure out why people call me. What is it that when my name comes up, what's represented there? And you can go get it yourself. In fact, I think we've done some workshops where we get women to go ask what their strengths are, what they're good at, because it not only gives them great information, it helps us as women cultivate the skill to make that ask. And that is something that our male colleagues have a little edge on us. They're not afraid of feedback. They get it in the moment. I'm not sure where that comes from. Maybe that sports days where everything's, done on the, on the court or the field, but we do know that getting feedback in the moment that's actionable is really powerful. And we tend to not go get that. And so we like to develop that muscle, that skill. Go ask, go find out, and take it in, write it down. Don't respond, don't react. Just it's information. Catherine, anything you'd add there? I mean, you might.
No, I think that's perfect. I mean, I think what you have to go do, we think the word feedback is loaded. And if you call somebody up and say, I want you to give me some feedback, they go, ooh, it's going to be negative. Or so send them an email and say, I want to talk to you. I need some advice. I'll talk to you about my career. Introverts love heads up. They don't like for you to surprise them. So give them a heads up about what you want to talk to them about. And then you slip in that question, what do people say about me when I'm not in the room? I really am trying to figure out, what my reputation is. Here's what I want to be known for. What are people saying? And help them, because it's hard when people do it to you. It's hard. So say it in a way that they can put it out there for you and they're scared of hurting your feelings. So help them so that they don't hurt your feelings, or they don't worry about hurting your feelings.
Yeah, I love that. I have a couple of questions I want to try to combine. I think they might be combined because they came from the same person. So Jen is mentioning that she's looking for some guidance, learning how to connect with a new woman who's leading in her organization after working for a man for 18 years, wondering about how to connect with this new female leader in the organization. And then there's a previous question that came in from Jen. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong and they're not connected, but she was asking, how do you deal with women who have tough exteriors and don't seem to want to engage in vulnerable conversations or to collaborate and create community? So maybe they're not connected, but they both came in from, I think, the same person. So maybe we can address both of those at the same time.
Well, I'll start, Catherine, and you can dive in there. The one about having a new woman leader, do what we always say, women go help women. And that wonderful, famous old quote from Madeleine Albright, a special place in hell for women who don't help women. Go help this new leader, go help her get the lay of the land, go share your brand with her. What kind of work do you do and want to do? Establish some sort of relationship. You'll know once you get in there, but what are ways you can help make her successful and be a part of that new team? Because new women leaders, and we've all been one of them, going into an organization brand new, no one knows you. You have to very quickly sort out what's happening and what's going on the ground and who's to be trusted and where am I gonna find the pitfalls. And so be that trusted envoy to the new leader.
And I guess the questions are not connected. So maybe one of you could share about how would you deal with a woman who has a tough exterior to be able to create a deeper connection?
I think that people have a tough exterior usually have a big heart, and you got to just go walk with them instead of in front of them and build rapport. And it may take longer, but you know how to build rapport. Women are really good at it. And go work to build rapport with this person. And I bet over time that there'll be cracks in that exterior. And what we know is that introverts, which I would guess this person is probably, when you get in their club, you are really in their club. And so if you will walk with this person, I think eventually you will break that exterior.
Thank you, Catherine. So I think I'm going to take one final question.
And then I have one last thing to say, Becky, before we go to the end.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
So
go ahead with the
okay,
question.
one more question and then what you have to say. Then we're going to quickly tell people about calls to action again, and then we're going to wrap up with a powerful story. So we hope you'll stay till the end of the hour. So this question says, Amy has run into several women leaders in her career who decided they had to prove themselves and therefore micromanage those who report to them, creating a horrible environment. How can you impact them in a positive way to help them realize what they are doing when you report to someone like that?
I think that you have to go say, what's going on. We were talking earlier about had courageous conversations. And I think this is one of those where it's not ugly. It's, I don't think you're aware of the impact you're having. Can we negotiate this? One of my professors used to say, everything's negotiable, but the idea that everything's negotiable. So go negotiate another way to play ball together and say, we're in this pattern. Can we have a new pattern? And go ask for something different. Brenda, would you add anything?
It's a tough situation. No, it's just a tough situation. I think we've all been in those places. And there's sometimes, you have to control what you can control and then not feel accountable for all the rest. And it's a hard dilemma, but Catherine, I think you're right. You've got to go try to establish that rapport. And sometimes it works and sometimes it just doesn't. I mean, it's a tough one.
I hope today that you got an action for yourself. We've talked about, Brenda had you write down your brand, your reputationality, what it is and what you want it to be. I had you write down who is part of your posse and who do you need to add and what do you need to tell them. So I hope you'll go out of here today with an action step that you're going to take. Many of you said that this was your outcome at the beginning to get that. So take a moment in your head and just think through what am I going to go do differently when I leave here?
Thank you, Catherine. That's a really great reminder. And just quickly, we want to share with you a few possible action steps related to this book, things you can do today. I know I'm so thrilled to have my copy in my hands. We hope you'll choose to pre-order the book on Amazon or your favorite retailer today. And when you do that, if you're interested in the giveaway, we will be providing that Google form where you can let us know that you've pre-ordered a book, and then later we can get you a free ebook copy or a free audiobook copy that you can use on Google Play Books. We also hope you'll check out the volume purchase incentives. If you in your organization could use this book as a resource for women, it's a perfect gift to buy in bulk and to share with the women in your organization as they all seek to grow their careers. We have made a way for you to stay in touch with Brenda and Kathryn and the Bravanti team. We hope you'll take a look at the book trailer and share it with your colleagues and friends. And you can read a free sample of the book by downloading the free sample chapter. Again, this book launches on August 16th. We can't wait to share this insightful book with you. And we're thrilled that you joined us for today's event. And I am going to kick it back to you, Brenda, to share a parting story with us.
Well, thank you, Becky. And I'm going to circle back to the first thing we said, which is we are women just out there trying to help other women. And we felt in some way, sort of not obligated, but we sort of felt like what a waste if we knew all of these things and these patterns and couldn't give them back. And I just remember one particular cold winter afternoon around the holidays, 2020. It was sort of the peak of COVID. In fact, Catherine, you had COVID.
I had COVID, yeah. I wasn't sick, but I had COVID.
She was recovering from, or trying to recover from COVID, and you were feeling okay, but you had it. And it had been a long day, and we were wrestling with these themes and how do we package this in a way that's understandable given all the work we've done. And I admit I was fatigued, Catherine. I called Catherine up and I said, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? I mean, there's a lot, we're busy. There's a lot going on in the world. Why are we trying to do this? And you're sick and I'm, over here and I'm tired. And Catherine just let me talk. She just let me vent for a minute. And being the senior advisor that she is, she let me get through it. And then she said, Brenda, I think what we're trying to do is we're trying to be Peggy. And I said, I'm thinking maybe I lost her here in my conversation. She said, who is Peggy? Great. Who's Peggy? She said, let me tell you a story about Peggy. She said, my mother told me this story a long time ago, and it comes back to me often. Now, Catherine's mother is almost 100 years old now. And I think next year, right, Catherine?
She'll be 100.
So she was at her peak during the World War II years. And she shared the story that, as you all know, during the World War II years in the domestic space, women picked up jobs that men were gone to war and couldn't do. And Catherine's mother, along with Peggy and a few others, were manning the airfield tower at the Charlotte Airport, which was a small place back in the day, regional space, and you could overlook the airfield and overlook the railroad tracks beyond. And one cold winter evening, as they were on their watch, they saw a cargo, plane coming in and missing its mark and crashed on the railways down below. And of course, this is an issue because on the other side of the field, they see a train coming toward this bend in the road. And they, of course, were trying to get help on the ground to go attend to the wreckage on the train track. And then, of course, here comes this train, and they were unable to get signals out. So Peggy runs from the tower, grabbing a broom on her way out the door in the cold, dark night. And I think, as the story goes, she was wearing her good shoes, right, Catherine? She had her good shoes.
My mother was upset that she ruined her good shoes.
She grabs that broom and steps onto the track, and she lights it up. And she runs toward the train coming in the distance with the broom on fire. And I think she had to light it a second time before the conductor of the train did see the flicker of light in the distance and slowed down before it approached the turn in the bend, and thereby preventing another collision. And it hit me what Catherine's message was. We are like Peggy. We have this information. We have seen a point of view that maybe everyone can't see, and we are lighting it up and running toward this this population of women, young, old, experienced, not experienced, and saying, here are some things to watch for. There could be some danger ahead. There could be some opportunity ahead, but boy, wouldn't it be better if we knew all of this. So we want to be Peggy. I think that story's in the book. We thank you for your time today. We have loved it. We wish we could continue it, but reach out to us and enjoy the book, pass it on, and help women wherever you are. Becky, back to you.